Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Caffeinated Librarians, MPL's pop culture podcast. We're continuing our Buffy series with a discussion of Season 3, Episodes 1 and Episode 3, Faith, Hope, and Trick, and Episode 9, The Wish. So just a brief overview of Season 3. So this is the season where Buffy and her friends are now seniors in high school. So they're dealing with a lot of the issues that seniors at this time deal with. Exams, college entrance exams, thinking about what college you want to go to, the pressure of sort of that graduation phase of leaving your childhood behind, and sort of, so to speak, and going into the adult world of college. In Buffy's case, she's also dealing with her concerns about her responsibilities and whether she can actually go to any of the colleges that she's been accepted to. She's also, at the start of the season, dealing with the fallout from Season 2, where she had to kill Angel and send him to a hell dimension. And at the end of the final episode of Season 2, she runs away. So her friends are also dealing with having to pick up the slack now that she's gone, not knowing where she is or what's happening to her. She does return to Sunnydale, and she does, in a few episodes, deal with the repercussions of the fact that she left, that she's missed school, that she sort of bailed on her friends and her duties.
Sort of bailed.
That she did. She bailed on her friends and her duties. This is also the season where Angel is brought back. In one of the later episodes, it's explained how and why he was brought back. This season also introduces another Slayer, because if you recall in Season 2, Kendra was killed. So when she's killed, a new Slayer is activated, and her name is Faith. And she comes from a very troubled background. When we meet her in the episode that we will be discussing, so I won't say too much, we learn a bit more about her backstory. So Episode 1 is called Anne. And in this episode, we learn where Buffy has been. So she's been in LA. And she's been waitressing in a seedy kind of diner. And she's been trying to maintain a certain level of anonymity. She doesn't want to be found. She very much, at this point, is self-isolating, not interacting with other people. Back in Sunnydale, Willow, Xander, Oz, and a reluctant Cordelia have been trying to pick up the slack, have been trying to do patrols, to hunt vampires, with varying degrees of success.
Or not success.
Giles has been trying to find her, so he's been following leads wherever he gets them, and he hasn't been successful. And it's at this point in LA that Buffy meets a young woman named Lily. Now, Lily is a character that we're introduced to in Season 2 in an episode that we didn't watch for this podcast, but she's part of this cult that worships and venerates vampires. It doesn't end well for most of them, but Buffy saves the day, and we don't see her again until this episode. So she's going by the name Lily, but we don't know what her real name is. But through glimpses that we get of what she says or doesn't say, we realize that she's probably come from a troubled background, and that just like Buffy, she's trying to remain anonymous. She does not want to be found. She has bonded with this young man named Ricky, who is also a runaway. And this is the episode that I would say was probably trying to tackle the issue of homelessness to varying degrees of success, and how the homeless can be preyed upon by those who are stronger, by those with certain nefarious agendas. So in this case, you learn that these demons from another dimension are abducting healthy homeless teens, because naturally no one will miss them, no one will look for them, so they're easy prey, and they're working them until they're too old, and they spit them back out into our world. Lily asks Buffy for help because Ricky has disappeared. It turns out that Ricky, unfortunately, was a victim of this scheme, and when Buffy finds him, he's overdosed, he's inhaled some substance, and he's died. She gets sort of drawn into the world of the Slayer in spite of her intentions to not get involved, but Buffy being who she is, she has to be involved. She gets brought to that other dimension. She liberates the workers, so to speak, although there are some people that are left behind. And every time I watch this episode, I say, well, what about Aaron, who's one of the young men that gives his name, gets knocked down and is left on the ground? It's like, what about Aaron? So Buffy does rescue some of them, but not all of them.
I think Aaron's dead.
Maybe. There was no confirmation on that. So she does rescue a few of them. It's hinted at that Lily could probably have a chance at a new life because she's going to work at the diner where Buffy was working. She even takes Buffy's name. Her middle name is Anne. So she says, can I be Anne? And it's hinted at that she might have a chance at a fresh start. And the episode ends where Buffy knocks on her mom's door and comes back to Sunnydale.
Question.
Yes.
Giving too much away. Does Lily come back?
No, we never see her character again on Buffy. I'm not sure if she probably appears in like Angel the spin-off series, but we never see her again on Buffy.
Rip.
So that's like a summary of like the major plot points of the episode, but like what did you think of episode 1?
So I wouldn't say it's about homelessness. I would say it's more about teen runaways. I mean, they are essentially homeless as runaways, but I think it's predominantly about teen runaways, not specifically on homelessness. That being said, I don't know. I don't have really great opinions about it. I was like, and this could obviously stem from the fact that I didn't watch last week's episodes because I wasn't here on that Friday that you guys talked about the season 2 episodes. But I, at this point, don't really have any emotional investment in Buffy. Maybe some of her friends, like Willow and Oz, I can really do without Xander as a character, as a whole. I don't know that Buffy necessarily, like, when I got to the end of the episode, I did not get the sense that it was that Buffy ran away because of what happened with Angel. I almost get the sense that she was working kind of like incognito of everyone and like willing to get captured by this underground working demon organization and revealing herself as a slayer and then kicking ass.
Well, that's what happens later.
Right, but
Yeah.
I don't necessarily... The sense I got did not read that she ran away from Sunnydale because of Angel, because if that was the case, I don't think then she would have come back.
So I can say that is the case, and I think like one thing I was talking to Katie about like before we were recording is that unfortunately with this series you're only getting bits and pieces based on the episodes I've been selecting, and it's been very hard because you don't get the full sense of the story. But in the follow-up episode, Dead Man's Party, it comes to a head.
Right.
So her friends are basically almost unwilling to be with her.
Right.
And Buffy senses this, and at a certain point she says, I get the feeling you're ignoring me. Yeah. Why are you ignoring me? And Willow eventually, like, they throw a party and they intentionally invite half the town so they don't have to interact with her.
Right.
And you can see the awkwardness is played well by Allison Hannigan, where you can see she does not want to be with Buffy for any longer than a second.
Yeah.
Xander is being Xander with Cordelia. Cordelia is the only one that is the most honest and sort of self-aware of the situation.
Yeah.
And Buffy almost runs away again. And Willow catches her packing her bags, and she says, oh my God, you're doing this again.
Yeah.
And she says, you guys don't know what I went through. You guys don't know what I had to deal with. And Willow says, but you're not talking to us.
Right.
And she said, and basically that's when Xander says in his insensitive way, sorry that you had to kill your boyfriend, but most people don't hop a Greyhound for boy troubles. So she did run away because of what she had to do.
Okay.
She made a poor, but that's, and I'm not trying to say, but it is revealed that is why she ran away. And she's confronted about this in that episode. It's resolved too quickly. Logically speaking, you don't get over that, oh, one episode, we're friends now. But the show sometimes does that. But in that episode, even her mom says, you put me through the ringer. I didn't know whether you were dead. I didn't know what happened to you. And then at the end, they fight these zombies that crash the party because her mom has a mask that revives the dead. She doesn't know that, but that's... so they crash the party. Buffy sort of fights, and they sort of make up.
Two things.
Yes.
First, hello, audience. I mismanaged my time this week and did not get a chance to watch the episodes, so I'm playing support this time. But how many seasons start off with Buffy returning to Sunnydale?
Yeah.
Because season 2 started off the same way, and I just think, granted, with that one, it was summer vacation. It wasn't like, she skipped out.
So once the fourth so to answer your question, the fourth season, she goes to the fictional Sunnydale Community College. It's like a fictional campus. I've forgotten what university was actually shot. So she dorms there, and then every once in a while she'll come back home. I don't know if that counts.
Okay.
As like returning.
Well, I was just curious.
She's not in like Sunnydale proper.
She's like about, I think, like 10 minutes. Like, one thing I will say about the show, and this is a major aside, is the conception of how big Sunnydale is or small changes dramatically over the course of the show. Yeah. Because Buffy, she calls herself, I'm an avid pedestrian because she never learns how to drive, like goes from the high school to her home. I'm like, how long is this taking? Like, what? So time is a little wonky. So like she'll probably take a bus, I'm assuming, to get to her house. Like it's really weird, but then it's like she runs and she reaches her home.
The Hellmouth,
probably. It messes with the time. But to answer your question, technically only seasons 2 and 3.
Okay, I didn't know if it was going to be like a little bit of a tradition going forward.
No.
Like a gag?
Yeah, it's definitely, It's like Buffy often enough doesn't handle her trauma in the healthiest way, which is realistic because there's some people that they don't handle situations in the best way. So her default is I get silent and I run away from you.
And she's like a teenager with the worst job ever.
Yeah.
Also, Katie mentioned about taking or leaving Xander. I was just looking at the Wikipedia list of episodes this season. There is an episode I've heard of called The Zeppo, where isn't that directly addressed that he's sort of superfluous to the gang?
Yeah, that's in season... Is it season 3? Or?
It looks like.
Okay,
yeah.
I thought it was season 2. So yeah, that's like the only episode really devoted to his character. Mm-hmm. And he essentially... So there's like the... I think they call it A plot, B plot. So, like, I think the B plot would be there's going to be an apocalypse. Surprise. There's always an apocalypse. But no one talks to Xander about it. It's the running gag where he says, I can help. And they send him to get donuts. So no one tells him anything. And then his plot is that there's this high school bully you find out he's a resurrected, not a zombie per se, because he looks a little better, but his uncle knew voodoo. Resurrected him, so he's decided he's going to resurrect his buddies who are slightly more decayed than he is, and it's just them. They rope Xander in, unfortunately, and he becomes their ride, and he finds out that their ultimate goal is to bake a cake, and Xander thinks baking a cake. They're making a bomb, and their goal is to blow up the school. So while Buffy and her friends avert the apocalypse, he averts the school being blown up. But it's a character exploration of him, his feelings of inadequacy, his feelings that he really plays no part in the group.
Because I've seen the scene where Cordelia tells him he's the Zeppo Marx of the group. Which is brutal if you like the Marx brothers.
Yeah, but at this point, Cordelia gives no about it because you learn...
F's.
Exactly. So this is the season where they finally decided that Willow and Xander were going to admit their feelings for one another. And they dance around one another, and it culminates in a moment where they kiss. They're caught by Oz and Cordelia, and this is the point where Cordelia and Xander essentially break up, and they never get back together. Oz and Willow have a tense moment or two, but they do get back together. I'm not trying to make the argument that it's not a bad thing, but the way they treat it, and I guess they're teens, you would almost think they had sex. They kiss, whatever. But I think it was sort of treated as a bigger deal than it really is, but whatever. So that's like another backstory. That's why Cordelia at this point doesn't care about what she says to Xander, because at this point they're no longer dating. So that's the backstory for that. So episode 3 is Faith, Hope, and Trick. And at this point, Buffy is slowly starting to piece her life together. She's been readmitted into school because Principal Snyder can't keep her out. But he says you have to pass a makeup exam or you're out. And this is where he gets a phone call from the mayor. And I mentioned that the mayor is a character that up until this point we've never seen, but he becomes the main antagonist of season 3. And when he was conceptualized as a car salesman.
Okay.
So he comes across as very happy. He's almost like a classical 1950s husband. And he's well-dressed. He's family values. He's this and that. But he will kill you without hesitation.
Oh, boy.
And he becomes a substitute father figure for Faith, who is the Slayer introduced in Faith, Hope, and Trick. So, as I said earlier, Kendra dies. And when a Slayer dies, a new one is called. So Faith is the new Slayer. She arrives in Sunnydale in a rather spectacular fashion. She slays a vampire in front of Buffy and, thanks her for lending the stake. Xander, of course, being the guy that he is immediately smitten with her. He develops this sort of sexual attraction to her.
Lust, people. It's called lust.
And you soon learn that she's not telling the full story. So she claims that her watcher went on this retreat, because they have watchers retreats, where they kayak.
That Giles is unfortunately never invited to.
Yeah, they punt, and they have all good sorts of times. Giles is salty because he's never invited. But you learn that Faith is in Sunnydale because her watcher was murdered in front of her by a vampire called Kakistos, or as Buffy says, khaki trousers, which is the funniest thing ever in my opinion. She also calls him kissing toast at one point. She says he lived for kissing toast, and Giles goes, Kakistos, or was it taquitos? It's a funny moment. I love it. But that's a running gag where she'll mess things up, and Giles has to correct her. And he learns that her watcher was murdered by Kakistos, who's this really old vampire with cloven hooves and cloven, like hands that are cloven, his feet are cloven.
Because he's lived for a very long time, that they've transformed into, morphed into cloven appendages, which, how does that work?
Who knows?
Should I really just suspend my...
Yeah, let's just go with it.
They're vampires.
Yeah, let's just go with it. He has a dandy sort of gentleman named Mr. Trick, who's his sort of go-to, trying to get Kakistos up with technology.
It's like his valet.
I apologize, I have a cough. Yeah, you talk a bit because I'm going to lose my voice. Like, what are your thoughts on the...
Okay, well, when I saw this and I saw Faith come in, I was like, I know this actress. I recognize her from Bring It On. This is going to be cool. But then it's like the whole thing of like, I don't know if it's like a trope or not, but it's like the old person comes back from wherever they were, and then this new person comes in, and they're shown as being better than the old person, and all their friends gravitate towards this person, and I'm sitting there rolling my eyes, and it's like, oh no, this one. I thought that the fight was going to be a little more, because he's supposed to be this really old, this really badass vampire, and it's just a really quick fight, and then a giant, a small stake, and then this really ridiculous large piece of wood that should be heavier than it looks, and Faith just rams it into his chest, and I'm going, that's unrealistic.
She has superpowers.
I was unimpressed. It's okay. It's okay. And then we have this whole like background of what happened in the last episode between Willow and Xander and Cordelia. Something about her character, like I know that they're like she's supposed to be like the popular mean girl at the start of the season and the start of the series, and she's supposed to have an evolution of her character. Again, this is probably because we're only watching bits and pieces of certain seasons, but she annoys me. She annoys me as a character. I'm like, oh, so you're going to revert back to your old ways. That's how this is how you're going to cope with whatever this emotional cheating happened or didn't happen between Willow and Xander. Instead of talking to Xander about it, okay, good, because that's mature. So, whereas I did like Faith, I liked learning about her character, I liked learning about this new Slayer, but like her attitude also came off as being like this and I understand that she's trying to like blend in and not being too noticed. So I liked this episode, but at the same time I didn't.
Yeah, so when Faith was conceptualized, and these are the words of the writer, not mine, she was conceptualized as white trash. And I'm quoting one of the writers, so it's not my words, it's hers. So that's who she's supposed to be. She's also intentionally more sexually promiscuous than Buffy is, which is sort of, and as we've spoken about, the show has a lot of issues when it comes to some of its depictions of women and sexuality in general. So she's supposed to be the shadow self of Buffy. And Buffy, at a certain point, there's an episode where she decides, I'm throwing caution to the wind, I'm tired of being good, and she has her bad girl moment. So she dresses a little differently. Angel's not terribly impressed. By the way, Angel's back. He returns at the end of this episode, all sweaty and naked in a room.
How often does Buffy have a bad girl moment? Because that was the season 2 opener too.
Yeah,
she came back and she.
So she's not bad in the terms of tude wise.
Okay.
She's more like trying on a costume. Okay. So essentially, like there's a scene which is why Faith and Buffy are shipped together, because I'm assuming Faith is supposed to be bisexual. Who the hell knows? But it's a really sexually charged moment where they're dancing in a club together, and even the way Buffy's dressed, like she has tight leather pants, she has like a bikini, or bikini tank top, whatever it's called, and she and Faith are dancing, and they're dancing with the guys, and it's like a highly charged moment, and it's her. So it's not like attitudes wise, it's more like she's trying to be more like Faith. Because she feels like I need to break loose, too much responsibility is being placed on me, and I'm calling it a quits. Unfortunately, this is a moment where she's partying too hard one time, and Faith, and this is the turning point for Faith, she kills a human. She thinks he's a vampire, she stakes him, and he's a human. He's the assistant to the mayor.
Okay.
So Buffy is horrified about this, and she says, we have to come clean, we have to admit what we've done, but Faith has essentially said, to hell with consequences, out of sight, out of mind, and she doesn't do it. And this is essentially when she falls into the arms of the mayor, and her arc takes a downward spiral, and she really becomes terrible. So Buffy, at this time, when she's playing with being bad, she realizes, it's almost like, I feel like she was being punished for sort of trying to get outside of her comfort zone, because then she realizes, oh my God,
yeah,
if I party, people die.
Yeah.
So she sort of reverts back to form, and she realizes this way leads to evilness. So she never really does it again.
I gotta say that there's something going on with the Whedon's conception of sexuality and morality there.
Well, it's without a saying, because like I said, Faith, and you don't learn too much about her backstory in Angel, but the assumption is, like, she talks about her mom being dead. I'm sure she comes from, I think she's supposed to be working class. She watched her get brutally murdered, so when she's come to Sunnydale, she's running away from a killer vampire. I don't know if there's sexual assault in her past. It's never been confirmed, at least as far as I know. But even her sexuality might also be a coping mechanism. Mm-hmm. And you can see at one point that she sees Buffy, and Buffy has everything that she does not have.
Yeah.
Buffy has friends. She has a loving parent. She has a father figure. She has stability. And at one point, Faith says, I can do everything right, but it's always about Buffy. And she decides, screw this. And that's when she becomes sort of the anti-hero in the season, and she joins the mayor. When she goes on Angel, she has a redemption arc, and she does change. But season 3, she's essentially the antagonist along with the mayor, which is sad because you see there are moments when she could have integrated into the group, but her self-loathing and her insecurities don't allow her to do that. So yeah, so Faith is a mixed bag. Like, I find her interesting, but I also had a hard time liking her when I first saw her.
Yeah.
And I don't really know if she's meant to be liked, maybe pitied because of her poor decisions, but she does grow and she does change.
Yeah, just not in Buffy.
Yeah. So episode 9 is The Wish. And this is an episode where we're introduced to a character called Anyanka. And Anyanka is a demon who's a misandrist. And I'm not using that term lightly, she hates men. And she punishes only men. So she's a vengeance demon, part of this vengeance demon family. And her thing is that she punishes men. So if a woman calls her and says, my boyfriend is a terrible guy, I wish that he gets, like, burns from the inside out. And she'll do that and throw a little creative twist. So she infiltrates Sunnydale High as a high schooler, and she hones in on Cordelia, because Cordelia's been betrayed by Xander, and she's full of vengeance. So Anya says, and she goes by Anya in the high school, she says, oh, you know, men, so terrible, a whole lot of them. And she goes to Cordelia, don't you just wish? And Cordelia says, no, I never wish, I act. But eventually she gets Cordelia to wish, and Cordelia says, I wish Buffy Summers had never come to Sunnydale. Because in Cordelia's mind, everything went downhill in her life when Buffy shows up.
Right.
So Anyanka turns, she gets all veiny and demon-like, and she says, done. And Cordelia wakes up in an alternate Sunnydale, where people wear drab colors, no one stays out past a certain hour, there's a curfew, and no students are allowed to drive. At this point, it still hasn't registered with Cordelia that something is not right, but whatever. So she's walking home one night, and she sees Xander and Willow, and she's shocked because she's been told they're dead. Mm-hmm. Turns out they are dead. They're vampires. And they're kind of sadistic. And they are together. So that pisses her off more than the fact that they're vampires. She runs, almost gets captured, but Giles shows up, and he takes her away, whisks her away in a huge van, and takes her to the high school. So in this world, Buffy never came.
Yep.
So Giles never became her watcher, so he's essentially still doing his role, but he has a core group of high schoolers.
He seems to be bumbling around far more than he would, which I didn't appreciate in this episode.
Yeah, because he's a competent person.
He is. He's very competent.
But in this one, it's less so. So in this episode, the Master essentially was freed from his prison. So in the first season, The Harvest, part 1 and 2, there's this minion of the Master who's trying to harvest blood in order to let the Master escape from his prison. So he doesn't do that because Buffy shows up in Sunnydale and thwarts it. So if we're going with the notion that she never arrived, the harvest took place, the Master rose, and hell on Earth came about. So in Sunnydale, the vampires reign supreme. So once the night comes and the daylight ends, they have free reign of the entire town. So the Master shows up again, and I like the Master. He's corny, but he's entertaining. And Xander and Willow, who are his favorite disciples, tell him, by the way, this girl came, she was an old crush, and she talked about Buffy the Slayer. Like, who's the Slayer? The Master isn't too happy about this, and he goes, find the girl, kill her, because if the Slayer comes, she's going to mess up my plans. Cordelia wakes up, sees Giles, and of course Giles doesn't know her.
Yeah.
Because they haven't developed that relationship. And she says, we need Buffy. We need to get Buffy. Why isn't Buffy here? Because I guess she forgot that she wished she wasn't there.
Right.
And Giles goes, well, how do you know I'm a watcher? But before she can say more, Xander and Willow come.
And they kill her!
In a sexy way.
My God.
That is sexually charged. You cannot tell me it's not a sexually charged moment the way they choose to do it.
It's not. It's cringe. I was cringing.
I guess. But, they kill her, lock Giles in a cage. And also, what kind of annoyed me is that Giles breaks out of it using a weapon. The weapons were still there. Why not? Anyway. It annoys me that he tried.
Well, see,
to do nothing.
Yeah, I liked this episode because I like the alternate reality, like the what if being played upon. I like that scenario. That I think Xander should be a vampire because he plays vampire very well with his attitude rather than a human. What I have an issue with this episode is that Cordelia dies. Why does Cordelia die? Cordelia made the wish. She's in the alternate universe. She's the one who should have gotten out of it. That makes more sense rather than Giles discovering it's the big surprise. It's the necklace that Anya had given to Cordelia, and he's the one to smash it. And
I completely agree.
Yeah, it's like, wait, no.
Because she learns nothing.
Right.
I agree. I feel the same way. And other people have said the same thing.
Because, and then Giles breaks the necklace. Cordelia is there, and it's like, but Cordelia died in the alternate universe. Why is she here in the current universe? And then is continuing to say, because once the source of the demon's power is broken, she has no more power.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's like, and then she keeps wishing, and it's like, but if you want character growth, if you want me to like this character, have her grow and learn something. She didn't learn or grow in this episode at all, and it's like, I got very frustrated.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And other people have said the same thing, where it would have been better if Cordelia had learned.
Yes.
And you see that when she talks to Giles, she says, things were better. They're not supposed to be this way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she dies. She's taken out of the episode really early. Buffy does come to Sunnydale.
Yes.
But she's a very different Buffy.
Yes.
So this is Buffy if you were without the benefit of a support network.
Yes.
So most Slayers, as you learn, were isolated individuals. What is supposed to make Buffy unique is that she has a support network.
Right.
So while she has this duty and this calling, she is supported by loving friends and family, which most Slayers up until that point did not have.
Yes.
So, and that's a running theme
Yeah.
throughout the show, that to be a Slayer is to be alone.
Right.
So when she comes to Sunnydale in this alternate universe, she is the Slayer personified.
Yes.
So she has
But
no
she's still
emotion.
taken out by
Which makes sense because
Yeah.
according to the thing, if she met the mayor, the prophecy, she would die.
Right.
So she is very little emotion, get it done, raw power, and she, like, it's hard for me to watch even her interactions with Giles, considering who Giles is in her life.
Yes. Well, he definitely becomes like a father figure towards
Exactly,
her.
yeah. I love their relationship. It's not perfect, but I love it. And she doesn't have that. Even her relationship with Angel in this alternate world, Angel is a prisoner of the Master.
Right.
He's regularly tortured by Willow and Xander.
Which, again, cringe. No, it does not work for me at all.
Yeah, and he ends up dying, and he dies in front of her, and because there's no... So realizing who he is to her, the fact that we see her almost respond with indifference when he gets killed in front of her, it's difficult to watch as well.
Yes. Well, like I said, I don't really have any like emotional attachment to Buffy, so that whole thing didn't really affect me in any way. But what did affect me was the fact that if Cordelia, so now we're getting to the whole existentialness of this episode. If the current Cordelia made the wish for, and she's in the alternate universe of Sunnydale, and she dies, then would she then be alive in the current after the necklace was broken?
I think she would, because essentially the wishes get reversed.
Okay.
So Anyanka, with a vengeance demon, because you meet other vengeance demons.
Yeah.
And they each have a different thing. So one vengeance demon you meet, she deals with children who are abused. So there's a funny moment where she says, and I gave the father that if he doesn't write a check, he gets paper cuts. And she's so proud of herself. So she deals with children who are abused and neglected. That's her reason for being.
Yeah.
So they can break a vengeance spell, but there will be consequences to breaking a spell.
Right.
So they can reverse their spells. In this case, Anyanka unwillingly reverses it because Giles takes her power source and she becomes a human.
Right.
Now, she is one of the new characters who becomes a more steady character as the seasons progress.
Okay.
And no surprise here, she and Xander end up together. It doesn't really end well, but I won't get into that all that much. But I think she's one of the characters in that the fandom really likes, and she's funny. She really develops and grows.
I think the way this episode falls flat for me is that the writers or whoever decided to take this episode and focus it on Buffy. They really should have focused it on Cordelia.
No, I definitely agree, because I think this would have been a moment, like, I would have loved, now that you're saying that, if Cordelia and Giles figured it out together.
Right.
That when Anyanka is summoned, Cordelia would have been there.
Right.
And would have retracted her wish. Or like that Cordelia would have also seen Buffy and realized, oh my God, like, even though I may dislike Buffy, she shouldn't be like this.
Right.
Like, that would have been better.
Right.
Because then she would have really gotten a sense for, look at what happens. And the fact that she doesn't remember it, like, maybe had it been reversed, but she remembers.
Right.
That would have been better for me too.
Yeah, and the fact I'm sitting in my living room and we're halfway through the episode and she suddenly dies, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What? No.
So that wasn't, I agree that was not the best decision for that episode. With Cordelia, her character does grow. And I know I've been saying this a lot. I think also, unfortunately, knowing also what we know about what Charisma Carpenter went through when she went on Angel, the abuse that she suffered at Whedon's hands, her characterization starts to make some sense when you realize who was writing her.
Right.
What I will say is that, especially once she becomes a more steady cast member season 2, she shows that because she's also honest, it's refreshing in that she will tell someone what you need to hear. I'm not going to tell you what you would like to hear. I'm telling you what you need to hear.
Yeah.
And her honesty is appreciated by those who understand where she's coming from. So even in season 3, like after they've broken up, she is someone who assists with the final battle. She's there. Even though, like, they're not where they once were, she shows up. Like, there's an episode that's one of the freakiest in season 3, and I would highly suggest you watch it, where Buffy turns 18.
Yeah.
And when a Slayer, if she reaches her 18th birthday, which shows you that Slayers don't live very long, she has to go through this arcane test. So she's stripped of her powers, she's drugged, incapacitated, and forced to face a vampire. Now, and what's heartbreaking is that Giles is drugging her without her knowledge.
Oh, wow.
And so she has lapses in her memory, and she can't figure out, like, why do I feel weak? What is happening? And the vampire she's forced to face was a serial killer of women when he was alive. So it's a terrifying episode. It's one of the genuinely terrifying ones, because Buffy is forced to show her resourcefulness in that I can't physically fight you, but I'm intelligent and I will overcome you.
Yeah.
Needless to say, she does, but I won't. If you do decide to watch it, and Giles at a certain point confronts the Watchers and says, this is not right. I'm invalidating this test. And because of his stance, where, like, he says, like, the head of the Watchers Council, you have a father's love for the girl, and the Slayer is a weapon. She's an instrument, nothing more. They fire Giles, so he's technically no longer her Watcher. Buffy confronts Giles, and Giles admits, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And you can see how genuinely hurt she is. And there's a scene where Cordelia comes in, and Cordelia picks up on something is wrong. And Buffy says, can you drive me home? And Cordelia doesn't hesitate, and she drives her home.
Yeah.
So she's not perfect, but she has sensitivity, and she immediately recognizes something is wrong. And she doesn't hesitate when Buffy asks her. So, like I said, there are moments. But that demonstrates that Cordelia has an awareness of others as well as herself that often enough the other characters don't even show. Like, she'll pick up if Buffy is like, oh my God, like, this is what she's doing. Like, if you recall, even in When She Was Bad, she's the one that tells Buffy, snap out of it, because you're going to lose your friends.
Yeah.
So she realizes that Buffy is behaving poorly. So yeah, she definitely has her moments where you want to smack her across the head.
Like this episode.
Yeah, but she definitely has moments where like you praise her because you're a self-aware person, like you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I definitely agree. I think it would have been better had she survived, had she worked alongside Giles. Because the episode it really wasn't about her per se. And I think it would have been better had she experienced what her wish wrought.
Yes.
You know, instead of being killed and having no memory of it.
Right, because that's character growth.
Exactly, yeah.
And we didn't get that. And I was very disappointed.
Yeah, so I can definitely agree she was kind of robbed of that moment to have some growth and to show some depth.
Yeah.
But this episode also illustrates how important what Buffy does really is.
Yeah.
And how her absence affected the lives of others.
Yes.
So in this case, Willow and Xander were killed. They became vampires. Giles was no longer anyone's watcher.
Which is a crying shame that they made him seem like a bumbling idiot and not the smart, intelligent man that he is. And I was like, this is a disservice. This is a crime. How dare you do this?
Yeah, especially to Giles. Don't do that to Giles.
No.
So if you had to sort of say, like, I'm assuming based on what you said that maybe The Wish was the episode you enjoyed the most of the three that we watched, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Because although I don't agree with the direction of the episode went, and I don't like how they changed characters because it's an alternate universe, I do like that whole, like, what if, looking at a town or a place or people in, like, that what if Buffy hadn't come to Sunnydale, what would have happened. So I like that take on the episode. So yes, aside from the things that annoyed and frustrated me, I did enjoy this episode more than the other two.
I'm glad. I hope you like the episodes for season 4. So yeah, and Joe, did you have any questions or?
What's the deal with the mayor?
Okay.
Like, what's his end goal? And yeah.
So the mayor, you learn, has been the mayor of Sunnydale for over 100 years.
Awesome.
Why no one? But then again, that's a running gag.
I assume he has different names or whatever.
No, I think he's always Mayor Wilkins.
That's awesome.
In fact, when you do meet him, like when they're finally figuring out how long he's been mayor, they see a picture of him, from like the 1800s with his wife. He goes, oh, and at first I thought, oh no, is this an ancestor? He goes, no, it's the same guy. He's just been eternally the mayor since the 1800s.
Wow, that's a rigged game.
Yeah, so he's someone who believes in order, believes in cleanliness. He's a germphobe. So he uses antibacterial a lot.
I'm also seeing this image. It looks like he's some kind of snake demon.
Exactly. So the third season concludes where the mayor is going to ascend. So it's called the Ascension. And he's going
I'm just imagining, like, there's a big announcement in the town, like, the mayor's going to ascend.
Well, he gives the graduation speech. And there's a scene where Buffy goes, oh, God, he's really going to go through the entire speech. Like, just kill us now. And then there's a rather poor CGI thing of his head splitting open, and he becomes a gigantic snake. And his goal is to eat the students at the graduation. I don't know what he wanted to do afterwards as a gigantic snake, but that was his goal.
Probably go back to being the mayor.
Probably.
So essentially he performs a ritual which makes him not impervious. Is it impervious to harm? I think so. Where he can't be harmed. So no weapon forged can essentially hurt him. So he does this ritual where he eats these gigantic spiders, which are really gross, and he becomes essentially not only impervious to harm, but yeah, so Buffy and her friends can virtually do nothing. So his goal is to ascend, and when you ascend, you become a demon. So this is when Anya returns because she witnessed the ascension, I think, centuries ago. And she said, it's not a good thing. No one survived. I'm out of here. And she essentially leaves Sunnydale, and she will return. So that's a character who leaves and returns. So she leaves, she books it, and she doesn't come back until the 4th season. Needless to say, they thwart the ascension. At this point, Faith, she and Buffy had an epic showdown, and Faith is put into a coma. So she's out of commission until the midway of season 4. The mayor goes berserk because he loves Faith. He does try to kill Buffy when she's in the hospital, but Angel shows up, and he says, can't wait for my ascension. You're in for a world of pain. It's going to be a good time. And he laughs maniacally and then walks away. He becomes a gigantic snake. And Buffy and all the graduating class get together. There's flamethrowers involved. There's arrows. There's a huge bomb, so the school is blown up.
Oh my God.
And the mayor dies in a fiery flame. And I love, you hear his inner voice, he goes, "Oh my Lord." And he just blows up or something like that. It's funny. And no one says peep about the school blowing up. I guess the bomb squad or whatever didn't really care. So that's what happens.
This school is targeted so much.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, well, they're on a hellmouth. Unfortunately, some characters, minor ones that we grow to sort of become slightly fond of, die. So, what's her name? Harmony becomes a vampire. Spoiler. She comes back in season 4, and she develops a relationship with a character. I won't say anything because it's just gold. So they graduate. They all survive. Well, for the most part, the Scooby Gang survives. They graduate. They're moving on to better things, except for Xander. He doesn't really move on to much of anything. And
Oh boy.
The mayor becomes a gigantic snake. But the mayor is a fun character because even though he's evil, especially his relationship with Faith, he becomes a father figure for her. And there's a wonderful scene where he gifts her a knife. So he gives her a plate of cookies, and he gives her a glass of milk because healthy bones are important. And you see Faith takes a bite, puts her cookie there, and he immediately wraps it in plastic because he's a germphobe. And he gifts her this knife. And he goes, "You see that? The look on your face is worth it." And she's like sniffing the knife. And she's like, "Oh, when do I get to use?" But it's so cute because it's like a father looking at it. So like, "Oh my God, you're so precious." Yeah, but I love how he says like healthy bones are important. And like, so that's who the mayor is. And like, I'm probably not characterizing him that well, but he's a good time.
I saw some quotes from him here too that were pretty funny. I guess there's a scene where Faith calls him sugar daddy, and he's like,
"Yes.
No, I don't find that very amusing.
I'm a family man.
Yeah, now let's kill your little friend."
Yes, because he gives her a dress, like he gives her something. And he goes, like another point, like makes her wear this dress, and she goes, "It's not me." He goes, "No one knows who you are," and it's a very touching moment. He goes, "No one knows what you have yet to become," and she looks at him, and there's like that tender moment. But it's like they're both killers, but it's sweet at the same time, because he's a family man, and So that's the mayor.
All right.
He's a fun time. And I hope to God that my jiggling the ice in this thing isn't gonna drive you insane.
No
No
Spike and Drusilla this season, or?
No.
Okay.
No. There's Spike, and that's related to the episode where Willow and Xander get overcome by their passions and kiss each other. Because, if you want to know,
I like Spike. He's
Drusilla
fun.
has left Spike because she realizes he is no longer the man she fell in love with, and that
he's gone soft.
Exactly, and that the Slayer permeates his every being. So he goes there with the intention of getting a love spell so that she will fall in love with him, and he can basically torture her to death because she's going to be so in love with him. That's when he sees Willow leaving the magic shop because Willow is trying to do a love spell to sort of delust herself and Xander, and Spike kidnaps her. And so he kidnaps her and says, you're going to do the spell for me or else. And that's when Xander comes in and they kiss. So he appears in the 3rd season. He becomes a steady figure again in season 4, which is really funny. He's great in season 4. So you briefly see Spike, and that's when he reveals to Angel and Buffy, who are trying desperately to show that they're friends now. And he goes basically, love isn't brains, children. It's blood, I think, coursing through you. Like, oh, it's a beautiful line, like trying to work its will in you or whatever. And he's a sap at that point. And he eventually leaves Sunnydale and he doesn't come back until the 4th season. But we do see Drusilla, but it's not until season 6.
Okay.
Yeah. It's good times. All right. So thank you so much for joining us for this discussion of these 3 episodes in season 3. As always, like, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.
I'll do the homework then.
Yes.